Hi everyone, and welcome to the very first lecture on what is VPN. In this course we are going to explore a lot of topics, a lot of ideas, a lot of things that are actually implemented in the real world. And whether you're in college or you already have a job in networking or security and you want to build your knowledge, like to build on that knowledge that you already have, this is going to be really great for you. It's going to be really beneficial for you. So we're going to begin with something really basic, and we're going to build on that. And if you already know some of the information, I advise that you don't skip that lecture, because you're going to hear a couple things that you haven't heard before. I want to mention that VPNs have always been one of the most interesting topics for me ever since I was in college. And honestly, we're gonna have a lot of fun. I'm gonna start with something really basic, and we're gonna build on that. And so let's have fun. So the very first question that we need to answer: what is VPN? And it doesn't matter whether it's a site-to-site, SSL VPN. You might already know some of the terms, some of the abbreviations, but it doesn't matter, really. It doesn't matter. VPN is basically a short for virtual private network, and its purpose is to provide two things. The first one is to provide a tunnel to a specific resource. Maybe it's somewhere internal, on your network. Maybe it's somewhere else, you don't know where it is. I mean, some company that provides you VPN, that provides you access to their resources. You don't know where this is, but you need to get there. You need to have a tunnel there. So the first thing is to provide availabilities, to provide access to a specific resource. And the second thing that VPN provides, your virtual private network provides, is to make sure that tunnel to that specific resource is secure. Alright, so two things that you need to remember right away, regardless of what type of VPN you use, whether you're connecting with a client, whether it's a clientless connection, whether you have two sites, interconnected, it doesn't matter. So two things. It's availability to a resource, and the second thing is basically to make it secure. All right, to actually provide availability and security, VPN provides authentication, data integrity, and data confidentiality. And this course is going to be built on these three principles, and we're going to discuss them later on in great detail. We're going to cover all the protocols that apply to these principles and why they are relevant. But this is kind of like an overview on what is VPN, and let me really briefly go through that. So the first thing that VPN provides is called authentication. What it is, right? So to authenticate a user, to authenticate a machine, a specific device, to be able to connect to a resource that you want to, tunnel to, you need to make sure the person who is trying to access it is the right person. If it's someone that you don't want to have in your network, the person will not be authenticated. So a VPN solution needs to have a strong authentication, let's say resource, right? So it needs to be able to have that authentication process. The second thing is called data integrity. And what I mean by data integrity is basically what you send from one side, from one client to another through the tunnel. We need to make sure that the information is valid, that something that we send over the link, over the tunnel, is not changed or modified in any way. So VPN should provide integrity for that data. And don't worry, we're going to discuss that, how it works in great detail. You're going to understand that. It's just an overview. And the last thing here is data confidentiality. And we do that by way of encryption. What is encryption? We're going to talk later once again, but you need to make sure that the data that is sent over the wire, over the link, over the tunnel, we can say all of these terms, doesn't matter. All of the data that we send over the link is basically confidential. There are a lot of devices on the network, in the internet, that can intercept the traffic, and it happens to any connection actually, if it's not encrypted. But when we use VPN, we use something that is called encryption. We basically encrypt the data to make it secure. All right, so when we encrypt the data, we make sure that no one else except us, except my client and the client where I send the information to over the link, are not able to basically read what is happening inside that link. And by way of providing the encryption, we are able to provide the data confidentiality. All right, so we have touched a little bit of main principles and what is VPN. And let me point out, there are two types of VPN, two main types of VPN. The first one is called Site-to-Site, and the second one is called Client-to-Site. And we're going to cover that in great detail as well, but I want to mention that Site-to-Site is basically when we interconnect a whole site. One site can contain a lot of hosts, a lot of devices, a lot of devices, right? So it doesn't have to be one single device. It can be a whole site, a whole building, a whole floor, a whole city. It doesn't matter. So we define a site, as network administrators, it's the whole site. It's not a single device. And the second, basically, it's called Site-to-Site, right? So on the other side, we interconnect one site to another site. Another site we define as well. So it should, contain multiple network nodes, devices, hosts. So this is what we define as a site. And another type of VPN that we have is called Client-to-Site. Is basically we interconnect one specific client. It can be an endpoint, it can be a Windows machine, can be Android device, can be iOS device. It is a client, a single device, and we interconnect to a site. And a typical scenario, basically, a site is something we define as network administrators, as security administrators, where our users need to connect. And the client is, I have my iPhone, and I basically install an application with a VPN, and I type in the IP address of my peer, behind which is my site. And basically I type in that IP where I connect. So this is called Client-to-Site, and we're going to talk about that as well. And the reason why I kind of like separated these two types of VPN is because the details and the configuration is a little bit different, and by knowing that little differences, you're gonna have so much more advantage, and you will be able to set it up properly and troubleshoot and figure out various scenarios and issues related to VPN. All right, so let's talk in detail about Site-to-Site first, and then we're going to move to Client-to-Site.